Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode. We're going to kick things off like we do pretty much every week since we started, looking at Star Trek Picard for this week. The episode in question is Stardust City Rag. Now, right off the bat, before my notes here, they're like the scribblings of a madman.
That sounds about right.
Mostly because I felt like a madman. I have here the episode title as Stardust City Rag, and then in parentheses, the day Star Trek died.
Yeah, that's accurate.
And for the benefit of Picard, we actually, I think the last two episodes didn't hate. I'm flipping back through my notes here.
I didn't feel they were like Star Trek, really, but they weren't terrible in and of themselves.
Yeah, they were. I think we came away with saying that they were good science fiction
if they
episodes for any other show. The end of the beginning, I think, so far was probably the strongest. Absolute candor. Did some stuff to the Romulans that I didn't like, and some of our fans there agreed on our YouTube for that one.
So I think so far, I think this one's also directed by Frakes.
Yeah, the end of the beginning was probably the strongest so far. Now, so we kick it off again, like the series likes to do, 13 years ago, to when the synths went rogue. Except this time we're in a different part of the galaxy. I don't know the name of the place, but it's like the Seven Domes, and it's literally just
completely made up place.
Yeah, 7 domes on the side of like this planet. It's a weird place, but it's like some it's a chop shop, right? It's a flashback.
It's where you get black market kidneys.
Yeah, and it started out really dark. Really, really dark. And I kind of liked what was going on at first. I'm like, whoa, this is kind of brutal. There's a Starfleet officer on a stretcher. Now, you don't know what's going on here. You see doctors, right? Or people in scrubs, people screaming. It could be anything. You see maybe it's a battle, something went wrong, doctors helping, whatever the case may be. But we see a Starfleet officer on the desk or on a stretcher table where the medical professional there proceeds to go into some body horror sort of stuff, very un-Star Trek right off the bat.
Well, on the one hand, yes, the way they're going about it is. On the other hand, there were plenty of episodes where it was just body horror, but
yes, this is
over the top.
Yeah,
it's excessive.
Is brutality of this patient. We don't know the reason yet. The first screen that I have pulled up here, we see a kind of it's really weird. It's a thing that pulls out your eye, right? It goes into your eye, grabs it, and pulls it right out. Yeah. We've seen those sorts of things all over before, but to the extent of where you actually see the eye coming out is some straight up dark shit. And it looks like it's just like a power tool, right? It looks like it
basically is
a craftsman thing with something on the end of it. Not very futuristic, but it's meant to look. Yeah, it's meant to look brutal, and it is. So we see music playing. It's really chill, and this person pulls this eye out of the Starfleet officer. We see the new uniform. He's screaming bloody murder, right? Clearly.
Oh yeah.
He's in pain. Pulls the eye out, snips it, right, and detaches the retina from this person's body. Okay, that's dark. Okay, I'm intrigued. What's going on here? It's 13 years ago. Something's amiss. 7 of 9 comes into the picture right now.
Well, the doctor was digging for a cortical node, so that tips you off.
The doctor was digging for a cortical node, and
liberated Borg or whatever.
It's a Borg. Okay, or former Borg, which we know do exist in the Star Trek universe, both in pretty much all the modern era, right?
Yeah.
We know that at least Starfleet has been able to remove implants if they get to you in time, usually, right?
Mostly, yeah.
Pretty much mostly.
7 of 9 was like the outlier.
is the exception, and they say she's the exception in Voyager usually because she was born essentially into that world as a very small child, right?
Yeah.
She grew into that, so she's mostly Borg. You can't really remove everything, right? It's like you can't replace everything. Some parts there need to work. So clearly, this is someone who was formerly a drone and has Borg parts, and they got the eyeball. Now they want the cortical, the node in there, and that's kind of that's what makes you tick.
Mm-hmm.
You
Without
need
it, you die.
Right? It's like you taking your cerebral cortex out. You kind of, it's important. So we hear explosions as this doctor is about to do that. Hasn't done it yet. Just takes the eye. 7 of 9 comes in, blasts away, kills everyone. Just badass, like pissed off mode. Comes over to this Starfleet officer. I'm like, okay, cool. He's gonna get help. Sure, he's lost his eye. That ain't good. But this is the future, right? You can.
You can grow a new eyeball or something.
Eyes are pretty replaceable, so I'm like, okay, cool, right? It's a little gory, but you came in to save the day. It turns out that this is not a regular Starfleet officer. This is not some nobody that was on some ship, right? That got a red shirt. That he's not someone that was like on the Saratoga or on the Battle of Wolf 359 or Sector 001. He's not a nobody. Turns out, this is Icheb. That is one of the children from Star Trek Voyager, who they picked up in the Delta Quadrant as a group of, I think there was like 4 of them. And they pick up
the episode. I remember seeing the end of it.
Yeah, they pick up Icheb and they pick up Naomi, right? And there's 2, those are the 2 main, like, they were the teenagers that they focused on in Voyager, who grew up essentially on the way home. 7 of 9 essentially was their mother, right? It was giving her that motherly role that she never had or could have, kind of thing. And
sort of family thing.
And it was interesting trying to see these Borg children like her, and she's trying to raise them now, essentially, but she's only been human for a little bit. So it was a really interesting dynamic. Didn't go a lot of places, but it was interesting in Seven's transformation back into becoming a human being.
Yeah, that was a later season episode, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then Icheb was the main one there with Naomi. He is the one they were captured. He is the one that had his eyeball removed. And then he is the one that 7 of 9 has to put down for some reason. She kills him. She shoots him right in the stomach, whatever. He says, please do it, get rid of it, whatever. He was a Starfleet officer.
I just went to his Memory Alpha page.
Oh, I'll get to this in a second.
Did you see that already?
I knew the second I saw him. I know what's going on.
No, so they've already replaced the the topmost image with him on that stretcher.
It's bad. So he's dead. Again, his cortical node hasn't been removed, so I don't know why he's dead. He's just been tortured, right? We learn later in the episode that they're harvesting all sorts of Borg parts. So, maybe other stuff was removed and it was too late. Whatever. She's forced to kill Icheb. This series has a lot of references and callbacks to other series in the Star Trek universe, but it is really doing a number on Voyager. As we'll find out a little bit later.
There's a number on something.
Yeah, last one was like, we're going to ruin the Romulans, and this one is we're going to destroy everything you cared about if you liked Voyager. And I went to Twitter after this to see some stuff which I will get to, which is actually funny. So right off the bat, I have here it says in my notes, killed Icheb, and then in quotes I have here, you can fuck right off. And I say that because one, the characters on every series of Star Trek mean something to someone, right? You may not like Enterprise, you may not like Deep Space Nine, you may not like the original series, whatever that case.
I like them all a hell of a lot better now.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But whatever you grew up watching is your show, right?
Yeah.
I was really young. I caught the end of TNG really on TV still.
Oh, yeah.
And I went back to that show, but I missed out on DS9 at the time, but I did fully commit and watch Voyager straight through, right? Because that was right at the time where I kind of was understanding my love for science fiction. It wasn't easy to go back to go. TNG was in reruns. You couldn't just go to streaming service to watch something. You couldn't even rent.
Era before that, yeah.
Yeah, even at this time, you couldn't rent series at Blockbuster. You know what I mean?
My dad obsessively taped every single episode of Star Trek.
I have a shoebox of like important Voyager episodes that I taped. Right,
Yeah.
2-parters, because I knew they were coming up, so I made sure to tape them, because you couldn't even go to Blockbuster Video City to rent seasons yet at that time.
No.
So everyone has a Star Trek that they love. So when you kill like main characters, and and these people weren't main characters at the beginning, but they became essential parts of the crew, and important characters in their own right, because they did go on to have Starfleet careers post Star Trek, whether that's in the books. We see that in the video games, in Star Trek Online. Naomi Wildman's there. We see that in timelines, all these other things, these characters do exist. But I think the biggest knock on when I realized this was Egypt for me was it's not even the same actor.
There's a lot of that going around this episode.
It's not even the same actor. And it's like, that's Icheb? I mean, it kind of looks like a young Icheb, but that doesn't look like Manu, the guy that played him, who I actually follow and have met several times. There is, I guess if you're a super nerd, there was an issue of an episode of GameSec, kind of a video game web show, where they did a bunch of Star Trek games, and the guest star was Manu Antarewu, who played Icheb on there. And the running joke was that they never asked him to do anything in the extended Star Trek universe, right? He didn't voice anyone in Star Trek Online. That was the running joke, that he was mad about, not really, but he was just mad that he's not involved in anything. He's like, I'm not in timelines. Icheb's not in Star Trek Online. Nobody loves Icheb. Icheb is nowhere. And so coming to Picard, a lot of people were, asking older cast members, hey, are you going to be involved in any way, maybe in a flashback or something? Episode airs. His Twitter, all he does is post an image of himself as Icheb from 25 years ago and says, thank you for all the love. And the replies are like, from, of course, like diehard Voyager fans, right? Because that's their show and their characters who they can now interact with on Twitter, just saying, boycott Picard. I hate what they did to, they killed you off for no reason. It serves no purpose other than to elevate another character, and it denigrates your character, and boycott Picard because this. And they couldn't even have the decency to ask you, who lives in LA or is out there, to even go for a 3-minute piece of just saying goodbye, right?
Yeah.
We've seen recastings and stuff, like big movies, when they change like timelines, but you only have Icheb here for a few minutes, to the point where you're just going to kill him off to serve as a kind of crutch for Seven of Nine's transformation into whatever the fuck she's become.
Yeah.
And you can't have the courtesy to bring the same guy who did it for the role, who still acts, who still does science fiction stuff, who still writes and everything, who
would still be willing to do it,
who would happily, he's always said, right? He's like, yeah, I'd be happy to do anything. That was the joke on the web series he was on. It's like, just Icheb, I'll be happy. The man has Star Trek arcade machine in his house. He loves Voyager. He loves his family there. That was a big fuck you right there. Because not only did they throw away Icheb for no reason, no one would know who this character was unless they were a devout fan of Voyager.
Mm-hmm.
No one. Because like I said, he wasn't a main cast from day one to the end, right?
Yeah.
So if you didn't watch Voyager, be like, oh man, that guy had a bad day. That really sucks. Oh, look, he was part Borg, I guess. There's a connection to Seven of Nine. That's pretty cool. But if you watch Voyager, you're like, you're murdering someone that was a part of our world. And that's kind of a really dick thing to do. And just that to stick the knife in the back is to not even let the actor who portrayed the character, who's still around, allow him to come back and close his arc and say goodbye. You know what I mean? The decency to he's not like Brad Pitt or not someone. You can afford him. He'd be happy to come and work for scale and do it, and just let him at least say goodbye to his fans. And it was that from that point on, I paused the video and I messaged you and I just said, I want to kill myself. I just said I want to kill
in
myself.
separate messages.
In separate messages bubbles. Just randomly in the middle of the day, everyone's working on their own things, and I'm just like, I want to kill myself.
Yeah, it's
right?
like, what the hell? Why is this going off 5 times in a row?
I loved Star Trek Voyager because that was my series that I got to enjoy from beginning to end, right? As a complete work while it was on, right?
I mean,
but
I'm pretty much in the same boat.
It's not my favorite Star Trek, right?
No.
I will still say it's TNG, but that's because I've had the chance to go back and appreciate it, just like people do, with older works. You can go back and see other things and see things you've missed, maybe because I was young, when Star Trek came around.
Oh yeah.
And so I didn't get a lot of that at that time. So Voyager was my complete thing. Like I know a lot about Voyager, more so than I'd probably like, because I can go back and watch that and go, ooh, okay,
that was not a good episode.
It's probably not so good. It's very uneven and it's heavy on the technobabble, and it's just okay. It's a little. I still like it, but it's not my favorite. But there are people who love this. So off the bat, and that's when I went back to my notes and put in parentheses the day Star Trek died.
Yeah.
Because now it's like it does feel like it's Game of Thrones territory, where no one is safe now that you kind of knew, because these ancillary characters are just being killed off for no reason. And I don't know if that's why they did it, right? I know it's to the arc of who Seven of Nine has become, but it's also in my head like that Game of Thrones idea, like, hey, we can kill off people you like just because.
I think it's more that they went looking like, who can we sacrifice on the altar to our shitty writing?
Yeah. So, and that happens within the first couple of minutes before the title intros just comes in.
That's a cold open, yeah.
A cold open of a very well-loved character who grew up from a teenager to an adult on Voyager, became part of the crew, and who is now clearly came back from the Delta Quadrant. That gets brought up a lot in this episode, and is a Starfleet officer on a ship. Like, he's on his own. He's not connected to Voyager anymore, and he's serving, in the Federation. Really cool. Like, what a nice completion that would have been, just to see him, even if he was injured like this, and survive. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
a completion for him. And now I'm afraid of everyone else. And so from there, I'm in a bad mood. So my notes kind of veer off into anger territory. But right from there, we move on to the next major scene, where we're finally introduced to the elusive Bruce Maddox. Now they're on Free Cloud. It goes back to present day. And we see a very old and disheveled Bruce Maddox, who's talking to, I forget another weird name, but a lady in Free Cloud, right?
Bajezel or whatever the hell.
Bajezel. Something, it's really weird name, but I think it's like Bajezel. Yeah.
Something like that.
And so he's there apologizing, right? And she is this kind of, you would say, like the head of a mafia, right? A mafia don, essentially a Free Cloud, right? Someone who's way up in that ladder of ne'er-do-wells. But Maddox is there apologizing to her. We don't know why yet. The conversation happens. I'm already mad, but he explains that he's sorry for the loss, and the loss that he's talking about isn't the synths and datas or whatever. The loss that he's talking about is his facility, and his facility that was destroyed when the synths went rogue and, basically destroyed Mars. Maddox's facility with the synth and everyone was there. And apparently, for some reason, I don't understand why to this day, this Bajezel Mob Don lady funded his laboratory? Is that what we're getting from this?
It was very unclear.
Because early on, it is explained that there is a dedicated facility at the Daystrom Institute for synths and data replication.
But it had been shuttered after.
But it had been shuttered after the synths, not before. And he was working there with Allie, the doctor lady that was on the ship.
So he had like a secret lab or something.
So did he had a secret lab, or why would you need it if Starfleet's already funded you and they have unlimited resources and like no need for money? Why do you need to be dealing in like Latinum for some underground, and it didn't make any sense, and it left so many questions open. But the two main things there aren't actually that it kind of makes no sense why Bruce Maddox would need help, since he is the expert on data and stuff. But that there's a Tranya reference there.
Oh yeah,
from the original series all the way back with Ron Howard's brother,
Clint Howard,
who played the child,
and a bunch of other things over the years,
and a bunch of other things. But he played that child in TOS and said, "Oh, enjoy my Tranya." And apparently now
I hope you savor it as much as I.
It's Star Trek, so which has become Star Wars, which means you mention one little reference, and now that becomes a gigantic part of the world. That's something I utterly hate. So they drink some Tranya. 2, and another issue.
I mean, why would they drink Tranya? There's so many. You could have Saurian brandy. You could have.
It's just like, hey, Grandpa, remember Star Trek and remember this one episode? Hardcore fans, after we just pissed you off, we're gonna soothe you by mentioning Tranya. But
green stuff. They could have had green stuff.
The second major point that this episode really just fuck right off is that that's not Bruce Maddox as actor either.
Nope. Totally different guy.
And it's like, that doesn't look anything like Bruce Maddox. And I know because not only because did I go back to see those TNG episodes, but I have Bruce Maddox in my crew on Star Trek Timelines. So I know who he is because he's one of my main characters. And so I looked it up. I said, oh, cool. Bruce Maddox is back. Wait, that doesn't look like the actor. Let me see what's going on. And it's not the actor at all. Funny thing, Bruce Maddox, the actor that played him, is currently teaching in California.
Mm-hmm.
He's here.
California Institute of Technology.
He is
Computer arts.
Right down the road.
Mm-hmm.
They could have just said, hey, do you want to come back? You're just, you might be in this one or maybe 2 or 3 episodes. It'd take a day or 2. You want to help us out. They didn't have the courtesy to either bring back Bruce Maddox, who, again, has a minor role in this episode and probably would have worked for scale and would have been like, cool, hey, I'm back. It's always cool. Yeah. What the fuck are they doing? 2 characters in a row. Each was a left field fuck you, but Bruce Maddox, this whole series has been building up to him. Clearly, people are going to go back to TNG and try to figure out who this guy is.
And watch Measure of a Man and realize that's a pretty good episode, even if there's some pitfalls.
Yeah, and now you don't even have the courtesy to bring back the actor who lives in the state where CBS Studios is. What is happening? This is and we've spent the last couple of episodes like praising like the casting, like, hey, these people are really good.
You're getting to where I've been since like Discovery at this point. Like,
wow. I don't know where this is going, but I like Picard's crew. They all are good actors. They bringing in good guest stars. I'm digging it. And then this episode comes in and just says, remember all that cool stuff we did? Well, we're going to fuck right off, apparently, because this is what happens with these CBS All Access shows halfway through and everyone just changes. It's bullshit, right? And so Bruce Maddox is there and he says he's sorry. And he says, oops, someone blew me up, guys. I think it was a Tal Shiar.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's not the Tal Shiar. We know it's the new space magical elves, group.
The Vashta Stampedes.
But her never mentioned in this episode. It's just Tal Shiar. And so, Destroyer, whatever her name is, a Gamora person, lady, Azazel, says, oh no, the Tal Shiar, that's hard to work with. They're a sneaky bunch. Like anybody and their mother can just be like, hey, Tal Shiar, let's deal. It's making the Tal Shiar just like shitty mob people and not a super secret organization. Like, oh no, I'm gonna have to deal with the Tal Shiar. I'm gonna have to get all sneaky. And she ends up drugging Bruce Maddox because she wants to keep him alive for what? I mean, it wasn't really explained. They just say, keep him alive for me.
Sell him back to Tal Shiar?
I guess something like that coming up later. But this is our intro to this episode, cold open and right after, and I'm already at a goddamn breaking point, and it's 10 minutes in.
Romulans so predictably treacherous.
I was so just pissed off, and I thank God I went on Twitter to each of actors like Twitter page because I follow them to see the first signs of like people saying Voyager fans are just like Picard is I'm done. I'm out. Because if you go to like CBS or whatever, I don't know if they're filtering or not, but it's just like me and my wife love this show. This is gorgeous. I love everything about it. I'm just like
they're guaranteed to be cherry picking it.
Yeah, just puking myself dry. And from there, we move forward to the Chateau set, which you all know I already hate.
Well, they spent so much money on it, man.
They're on the Chateau sets, which makes no sense on this ship because of scale again, but they're on it because we got this set. And so 7 of 9 was rescued at the end of last episode, and she walks in on the Chateau and makes a joke about it. You know, oh, you like this place. You made them keep it, whatever the case may be. And so she explains her backstory. And I'll sum it down to her backstory is she is now Boba Fett.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And she's Boba Fett. That's it. She is now a Fenris Ranger, who were not explained what they are. We were interested about them. Remember last time, like, oh, that's a neat idea. Who are they?
What the fuck is that?
They're just some people from the planet Fenris that banded together to be vigilantes. They're Old West vigilantes because law and order collapsed. So
Starfleet's not in the area.
And so what we learn, which is sort of interesting and something I didn't take into account coming into this, is when Romulus exploded, the neutral zone dissolved, right? That makes sense. It has happened in the past with the Klingons. The Klingons had their own neutral zone, right? And when Praxis blew up, if you remember the film, the Excelsior is there with Sulu, and it says, "Can we render aid?" And the Klingon says, "That's on fire." That gets cut off by the president of the Klingons, whatever, the High Council that says, respect the neutral zone borders and the treaties.
The Chancellor.
Yes, and so this has happened before. That makes sense. That sends an interesting dynamic into the situation. But essentially, she's there because she wants to help people. It's not made clear really why she's a Fenris Ranger.
Because they needed someone
who's her
main character for that shit.
Her arc in Voyager was to become, human again and come home with the crew. She does. There's like a loves thing with Chakotay. There's some flashback episodes in Voyager where they end up getting married right later on and he dies. And so
she dies in one of them,
or alternate she dies, but like that's where we kind of ended Voyager on is, she's in a relationship with Chakotay and becoming human. Now, for some reason, she was helping with the evacuation. Fine, that makes sense. She's important. She's a big character to have around. The neutral zone collapses. She stays behind and becomes a vigilante justice dealing. Essentially what you said, like marshals, just Wild West marshals who can kind of do whatever they want because they have
Texas
a badge.
Rangers.
Yeah, Texas Rangers kind of thing.
Like old school Texas Rangers.
And I just have here again in like quotes, just like, why? Why? Why is she out there being a Fenris Ranger when the rest of her crewmates have moved on to do normal things? Janeway's an admiral. We knew at least Icheb went on to graduate from Starfleet Command or Starfleet Academy and is on a ship. Everyone is probably out doing something, and she's fighting. She's Boba Fett now. Why? Because the series needs a Boba Fett. Apparently, we need a cool bounty hunter because Star Trek is full of cool bounty hunters.
So I know this doesn't transmit over like microphone, but I've been shrugging the entire time you've been asking these questions. So
I just there's no point. And I read interviews with Jerry Ryan before taking on this role because it's been so long for her that when she got in to do the work, she got really scared and she was really freaked out, and I didn't know why. And she said that she couldn't find her voice, and not like talking or speaking voice, but like the voice of Seven of Nine,
The character.
because that cadence or the way she spoke on Voyager, there was a certain rhythm to it.
It was somewhere between like Vulcan and like just very
and kind of just
Perfect.
monotone, almost robotic kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
It was a cross between those things. Essentially, she was like the Data or the Spock sort of thing, but it was a mix of things. And there was a certain way that she talked, or ended sentences, or began sentences, or did those facial moves of like interesting or whatever. Like there was a cadence to it, and she couldn't find it. And I was like, oh, that's weird, but makes sense if you haven't been with a character for like 20 years, right? I guess that makes sense, but I think it's because of the script. I think it's because she read Seven of Nine initially and was like, this is not who I was in any way, shape, or form. And she talked in her interview about how like the writers of Voyager were writing every single day, right? Adjusting lines when scripts came in, because they knew who Seven of Nine was, the way she spoke or delivered things. And so she was always being coached through this certain way of doing it. And now it's just like, well, here's a script, whatever, let's go, you're Seven of Nine. And it's a nightmare. It's just cool girl. It's cool girl bounty hunter. That's the entire setup and motivation. And again, we don't know anything about the Fenris Rangers, right? They don't talk about that Romulan ship they blew up, or the captain, right? I don't think so, right? They don't talk about anybody in any way, shape, or form. So I have no idea what in the world is happening there. But we leave that revelation of her being Boba Fett.
It's funny because she's in Star Trek Online.
She is, yeah, of
and
course.
That's only like that expansion is only like 5 years old.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, none of this is in character to Seven of Nine, this entire post-Voyager generation, from any like outside sources. Okay? But from there we move to the Doctor, Allie, which I finally learned her name. Aggie. See, I guess I didn't learn her name.
Agatha.
Aggie, who is in her bedroom on the ship, because apparently this is a pleasure cruise and everyone has big old private suites.
Remember that episode where Scotty comes back and they put him in that room and he's like, but this is massive. Even an admiral wouldn't have it this good back in the day.
So she has her own like luxury suite, and she's watching old videos of Bruce Maddox. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. She, this was her friend. She's looking back, and he's like making cookies or whatever, explaining like, I don't like replicators. This is how.
But he replicated all of the ingredients.
But he replicated he's like, this is how you actually cook. And she's like, well, I don't understand this. You're just burning things and yada yada. For her being a doctor as well, she's kind of stupid. You would probably know what baking is. It's in history. It's most of human civilization has utilized it. You're just replicating it now.
It's literally like the earliest form of chemistry.
Yeah. You would how these things work. It would be in a textbook. But it turns out that she was not just a colleague and friend of Bruce Maddox. They were lovers. And I just wrote here, because all my notes here just have parentheses next to them that just says muy creepy. Is what I wrote. I don't know the age difference, but in TNG, Bruce Maddox was already in his like 40s. He was a commander by that point, I think, right? Or lieutenant commander.
He was either in his 30s or 40s, yeah.
Yeah. So
he's got to be like 50 something.
Add 10 years to that, and then 10 more years to now.
Yeah.
He's got to be in his late 60s. And
maybe
she's probably in her late 20s, probably by the way that this Star Trek is depicting sexy hot females that they just love to do for some reason. And I just thought it was muy creepy. And I didn't like it. It made me go ick. And it also is a cheap way to set up something down the line, which I alluded to, I think in episode 2, about it being funny if so-and-so would happen, which we'll jump into. So that scene is simply there to make the audience later on in the episode go, oh, it's building.
What a shocker.
it's a shock. It's building a shock moment, but it's building a shock moment in the same episode, and not.
It's doing it cheap.
Yeah, it's doing it really cheaply and quickly to the point where you go, "Oh, really?" As opposed to threading that needle gently through like 3 or 4 or 5 episodes. You know what I mean? Like, give us some. You have to give us some sort of indication that something's going to happen, and not just jump scare us with like a pity party. So they leave those interactions, and these have all been like little one-on-one, one-on-two interactions, and we join everyone on the bridge of, I don't know, whatever the ship is called. Have we got a name for this ship yet?
No.
You think they'd give us a name for the ship, at least for people that loved their Star Trek ships, right?
I don't think really a Star Trek ship.
They might have a ship name somewhere, but I don't think they've said it or mentioned it. That, you know, welcome aboard the so and so, the, you know, whatever, the Star Wars ship. It makes no sense, but they're all up on there going to Free Cloud. Hey, come on down to Free Cloud. Everything is essentially, it's one of those everything is permitted planets.
It's La Serena.
La Serena. Yeah, that's never been said. Absolutely never been said, because I'd know that because that's a Spanish name. That's cool. Never been said. They get to Free Cloud, and it is essentially Blade Runner to a T.
Live the good life in the off-world colonies.
You're seeing like the big billboards and the 3D images coming out. It is
shit. Yeah.
Blade Runner wet dream. Someone just jerked off onto the page after watching Blade Runner. But leading up to that, they're on the ship, and the only note I had for this scene, because it's essentially worthless, it's just them getting to Free Cloud.
It's fucking stupid.
Is there just a lot of pop-up ads?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why is there pop-up ads in the future in the first place on your ship?
I hated them immediately.
So Rios gets a pop-up of someone that can fix his ship, because this is where I asked, like, what's the name of the ship? Because he mentions the class of ship really quickly. It's like, oh, you're running a so-and-so transport, whatever the case. I didn't pay attention to it, but he mentions the type of ship. And he says, well, you can get it fixed. And then Rios like flicks it away, and then Picard gets another message of some gambling person, like, come on down to gamble or this, that. And he says, no, thank you. We're all nice old man.
And Raffi gets drugs.
Raffi gets the drug dealer who says, hey, man, like, it almost seemed like a bad Jamaican racist thing. He's like, come get your weed, man. And she's like, oh, go away, please, blah, blah, blah. And then Aggie gets a robot, this Rock'em Sock'em robot, and they've all got rid of their ads pretty simply. I don't like that they're in their interfaces, because it doesn't make any sense in terms of how ship technology works on Star Trek.
How are they being targeted?
Yeah, like how are they being shown? Are they they have to be routing through the holo projectors on the ship, which doesn't make sense, because they've just been hacked.
Those ads are all targeted to them specifically.
Yes, they're targeted to their emotions specifically, right? It's a cheap character trait. It's dumb. But they all do their own thing to get rid of them, and Aggie has to punch this robot's head off. And then they have, which I hated in the entire pop-up thing. The only thing I liked about that scene is the couple of seconds after, where Aggie and Rios are kind of like joking at each other, and she's, you know, oh, you're not just a little girl, you're a tough, you know, you can be tough.
And Elnor got nothing. He's already being relegated to like not important.
Yes, and I'm like, thank you for not giving him anything. At least he doesn't get pop-up ads. He's got uBlock installed, whatever the case may be. It's absolutely stupid. And from a technology point of view, it doesn't make any sense how those things are even showing up on the ship. Right? It makes sense on your computer if you're getting a pop-up ad, but even in 2020, is there anyone under the age of 30 that is surfing the internet without a pop-up blocker built in? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then, okay, how are they being projected in front of them? Just to them. Does everyone have neural implants? Are there holo emitters on every ship? And if there are holo emitters, did Free Cloud just hack the shit out of your ship and is now in your system? None of this makes any sense. And I'm just getting angrier and angrier. And I wrote in my notes, Free Cloud is Blade Runner, and then in all capitals, scribbled out like a manifesto of a dying serial killer, I hate this. I hate this, and I might actually just take a photo of this and put it in the video if you're watching on YouTube,
Please
because
do.
I put stills on the ship. It is absolutely stupid. We then get to Free Cloud, sort of, and it's an interesting series of shots where the crew is on Free Cloud in their stupid pimp outfits from the 99-cent store, and they're also on the ship explaining what is happening on the ground, right? Raffi is saying, you got to do this, this, this. Then we see it on the ground. And then the next scene happens and Raffi's like, you got to do this, this, this. And then another character is on the ground doing it, right? It's a really simple.
You have to be careful because this guy can smell your entire fucking life back to the third grade.
And then there's a lizard man that is the stupidest new species on the planet.
He looks like shit.
Yeah, he looks like a cheap Babylon 5 character one-shot.
You're right.
He looks like a one-shot Babylon 5 character. The show, incredibly well-written show, that didn't have any budget. And so and clearly
basically doesn't.
And yeah, it's a bad Babylon 5 tertiary character that is only there 2 episodes. He has no neck. He just stands there, and he has
no neck and no future.
Moves his shoulders, and he talks out of a very small mouth because there's no real prosthetics
and it's very hard to understand him.
And he just because he's got teeth, and he just goes, I can smell you. And his whole shtick is that he can smell whether you're telling the truth. And the only explanation we're given for this, to smell the truth, we're in Star Trek, where we're trying to be scientific, and this motherfucker can smell the truth. As Raffi says, well, he's got a bunch of olfactory receptors, a bunch more than humans. And I'm like, what the fuck does that have to do with smelling truth? That just means he can smell my shit 3 miles away. What does that have to do with smelling the truth? I could tell you if you're lying, if you're shivering like a pig too, but this guy apparently can smell the motherfucking truth. And so Rios is talking to him in his pimp hat because Rios is pretending to be a mafia kind of
professional middleman.
Yeah, he's a professional. I forget what they call it. It's a stupid name, but a guild thing. He's a professional middleman
or something,
who is going to barter between the Tal Shiar and lady whose name I already forgot, but Lady Gaga lady.
Bejazzle
over there.
Yeah.
So I don't know why you need a middleman. I don't know why they can't do it, whatever. But he starts freaking out because of Big's reptilian guy who starts sniffing him. We cut back to the ship, and Raffi injects him with beta blockers. Stuff we have now.
Yep.
It's, you're going to get your vitamin B12. She just sticks them with some beta blockers. And he just goes, his eye twitches, and it's like he got high real fast. And he's like, oh, that's cool. Smell me, dude, bro.
The drugs hit.
He literally became more obvious at that point.
Yeah.
To be like, yeah, something's wrong with this guy. He's like, you smell the truth. And he wants to trade. He doesn't want to talk to the Tal Shiar. He's like, I got something for you instead. And he's going to use 7 of 9 to trade lives for Bruce Maddox. 7, of course, just wanted to go to Free Cloud anyways. She said, drop me off, but I'll help you. She's got unfinished business. She notes that Bejazzle is really wanted by the Fenris Rangers, even though the Fenris Rangers can just go blow them up from space. They clearly have spaceships, and Free Cloud doesn't seem like it has any sort of military up there.
It's pretty explicit that a starship is capable of destroying a planet just with orbital bombardment.
And we're talking about the TOS Enterprise can blow a planet apart from its specs.
Life on it gone.
Fenris Rangers, and they've already shown that they have stolen or have access to old birds of prey from the same era. They could blow up a planet. Clearly, you can probably procure at least a Miranda-class ship and blow the fuck out of Bejazzle, right? If everything fell apart, shady deals, you can get yourself an old ship as the Rangers. And this ties into this new world that the Star Trek universe is living in, where it doesn't make sense because of the ships they already have. One Starfleet ship is enough to patrol sections of space because of how powerful they are. to essentially everyone except maybe 2 or 3 other factions, right?
Like the Romulans and
the Romulans are out of the picture. So you have the Klingons, who are our friends. So your main priority is the Borg, who come and go, right? And that's it, because the Dominion War is over. And so everyone else, maybe the Breen caused some trouble, but everyone else outside of those that I've mentioned are running ships from pre-TOS era specs, essentially. And so, which is why it works when there's only one ship docked at Earth. It's the USS Hood is the Earth ship that is always there, right? It's why the Enterprise is the only ship in the sector getting to all these places, because you only need one ship to essentially keep the peace, because when you know there's a one goddamn behemoth out there that can lay waste to your own planet, you're probably not going to fuck around. So if they got one ship, even if the neutral zone dissolved, that doesn't mean that Starfleet has now stopped being Starfleet.
No.
Right? It's if the neutral zone collapses, that's more of an incentive to send more ships in those areas now to be Starfleet. This goes back to our earlier conversation of Starfleet is now a bunch of racist idiots. The neutral zone collapsing would be more of an incentive for Starfleet Command to go, oh shit, things are going to get real wicked wild out there, right?
We need to forge, treaties and shit. And
if
under the umbrella.
The Romulans were bad dudes who probably took by force, and now those places are going to go wild and be like, hey, we want your help, or we don't want to be a part of Romulus or whatever. We need to go and make sure there's a presence. That's what you do even today.
Or maybe even they're going to decide, hey, we're slightly better off than the people around us. We can take this shit over.
We do that now. We send aircraft carriers to certain parts of the world just to be there. We're not there to blow shit up, but we're there just like, hey,
don't start shit.
Look over there. Yeah, about 20, 30 miles out to sea. You can't see it right now. There's a thing that can level your whole goddamn country. So don't fuck around. That's what we do. That's what major you know what I mean? That's what they do.
That's what superpowers do, yeah.
That's their job. Whatever you might think of it, that's what they're there to do. Just be like, hey, they're right there. Don't fuck around. That's the first thing Starfleet would have done in the situation, is to send ships to the Romulan neutral zone that has collapsed. And instead, they're just left to their own fuckery to have the Fenris Rangers, who are apparently just a gaggle of people, now in charge of a whole sectors of space. It makes no fucking sense. Who's there? The Romulans are not there because Romulus blew up. I get it. Why would Starfleet pull away? Why would Starfleet pull away? It just
no clue.
I've got no fucking clue. So I wrote, I hate this. I'll take a photo of that. We get on Free Cloud, and Picard is wearing the stupidest outfit in the whole goddamn world. He's pretending to be like a
French pirate,
like a musketeer. And I wrote here in my notes, I can understand Rios being down there. I can understand Elnor being down there. I can even understand Raffi being down there for whatever.
You had the same problem I did.
They're just people.
Yeah.
We just met these people.
They're randos, practically.
I wrote, Picard has a shitty disguise, and again, in quotes I put here, he's the most famous man in the goddamn galaxy.
Yep.
Picard is the most famous man in the goddamn galaxy. They make him a flamboyant French pirate whose only disguise is an eye patch.
You're forgetting the beret.
And a beret. An eye patch. He looks exactly like fucking Patrick Stewart still.
Yep.
No
in a
facial.
beret and an eye patch.
No, like, they put a little scar on the left side of his face.
They did? I didn't even notice.
Oh yeah, they put a little scar on the side of his face to make him look tough. That's our well-hidden captain on Free Cloud, which is apparently like the mecca of like techno, like conspiracy, and it just this is the stupidest thing.
Remember all those episodes where they're like, "Oh, we got to surgically alter you to make you look like this alien race, so that you
They've
can
done it for
go
everyone.
undercover."
Riker got transformed to go spy on those almost warp capable people. Picard had ears to pretend he was a Romulan back when he was captain and not super famous yet. people have changed all the time to be other things.
I think. Oh yeah, that's right. Quark became a woman.
Quark became a woman.
The fool.
And so they go down, and they're
That's not
really
good.
bad
That's hilarious.
disguises, trying to sell or trade 7 of 9 for Bruce Maddox. And right before that, I guess, and it's a fun segue since you mentioned that, Quark is name dropped to the reptilian dude.
That's right.
He says, Quark of Ferenginar vouches for you, Rios, or whatever his name. He's got a funny name, that you get things done.
Yeah.
I don't know who on that ship knows Quark, but apparently Raffi got all this done, and so probably used his name. But again, we're getting now these incessant and really stupid name drops to other characters that I assume everyone's just dead at this point anyways. So we got a DS9 thing. So Picard has a shitty disguise, and at the same time, Raffi leaves. She says her goodbye because remember, her whole point was, I don't care about your little mission. I just need to get the free cloud anyways. This is beneficial. And this is where I kind of just lost. You already know I hate this episode in this show, but this is where I just really noted that Star Trek was dead, at least in terms of Starfleet being an organization as envisioned by Gene Roddenberry and so many other people. Raffi goes to meet someone who we get some allusion to earlier in the episode from some screens she's looking at. She's got a bag with her and she sees him. It's her son. So she meets her son without his knowledge at this fertility clinic at Free Cloud. What is Free Cloud? It's assumed that this is like some Blade Runner black market thing, right? But he seems to be a stand-up person at a regular fertility clinic.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't make sense to be on Free Cloud. I don't. What?
Well, I mean, doctor is a consistently important profession, I guess. So
I guess, but this is like a really nice and clean fertility clinic that at least would be like a shady fertility clinic. No, we don't get any indication of it. So she meets her son, and he just goes off on her, and I just put in quotes again, not Star Trek at all. And they have an argument about, and what we come to find out is that Raffi is just a druggy mom. She is a poor single mother who was addicted to drugs and a crackpot. That's what we're left with. And I don't like it. I don't like it because I don't
like it either.
Because I don't think that it could happen on planets in the universe of Star Trek or even with Terrans. But it doesn't make sense for it to happen to a Starfleet person. As
even
high
one who
as
got fired for a completely nebulous reason.
Even one who got fired, and it's when the synths attacked, Raffi left to try to help, to do what she can to save people, and just that. It's one thing to have a broken family over your job, and being a Starfleet officer is a hard job because you're mostly away from your family, probably the majority of your life.
Yeah, unless you're on the Enterprise D.
Right, and some series have touched upon that as why relationships don't work, or you know, I think there's the famous thing in TOS in those movies.
Wrath of Khan, yeah.
There's a famous thing in Wrath of Khan, but there's a famous one in Generations where Kirk is talking to Chekhov, and they just meet Sulu's daughter, who is now an ensign, and Kirk's line is, you know, how did Sulu find time to have a family?
Yeah,
which makes logical sense. One of the reasons Kirk those two things don't, especially in that timeline where families weren't on ships. It wasn't the golden age yet of Trek where Starfleet was this perfect utopian thing, which is what Gene Roddenberry wanted. They were still essentially warships.
Yeah.
Or even if they were research vessels, they were manned by professionals. Your families weren't there. And so he makes good point of that. But she's just a drug addicted mom. She was that before the synths happened then, right? Because he mentions that you were never there and that you were, you know, the drugs, because she freaks out when he says that, because the first thing she says is, I'm clean.
But here's the thing that I just thought of. She was working for an admiral.
Yes.
Admirals almost never leave headquarters.
No. She was stationed on Earth.
Yeah.
And he notes that you left when the synths attacked, which I guess is her job anyways to deal with stuff, but she was fired afterwards, pretty shortly afterwards, so she wouldn't have been gone that long. So she must have been a druggie during her entire time in Starfleet, which doesn't make any sense. With medical checkups and requirements, that's something you don't hide out in the open like that. Picard talks when she comes to her that she's smoking that vape. Remember the joke we made about it? And at my indication, at least at that point when it was funny, was because she was fired, right? Because she lost everything that she believed in, she turned to drugs and drink, right? A common sort of thing that would tie it to the real world of today. Like when your life falls apart, people tend to gravitate to things that make them feel better in the moment, but not in the long term. But when she meets her son, the idea is that she was always that way. And I don't like it. I don't like what it did to Raffi, and that she's clean, even though we've seen her smoke that thing earlier on. And I'm very confused. And I didn't like that he just screamed at her that she's a crap. I get what they're trying to do in that sort of back and forth of a single mom, and you were never there because of work. It just feels out of place in this, and I don't like it. So we cut back to Free Cloud. She does meet her son's wife, who is a Vulcan.
Was she Vulcan or was she Romulan?
She was Vulcan or Romulan, maybe, because all the babies in the ads had pointy ears at this fertility clinic, which might...
She seemed to have emotions, so I thought she was Romulan.
So it might be, a secret birthing place for Romulans, people wanting to conceive or something on Free Cloud, which would make more sense. But still, we've come to realize that Romulans aren't loved anywhere. No. So we flash back to Picard doing a bad accent, and 7 of 9 lying to Picard for the reason she's there. She really wants to kill Bajazil, which we already knew that coming into it because that was telegraphed right into our faces why she's there in the first place. She even mentions her. We've been looking for her, all that stuff. So she puts a gun to her or grabs her by the throat, and we got trouble. We flash back to the ship, and Aggie is having a panic attack. She's freaking out. Rightfully so, because things are going foobar on the planet, right? And she's hearing this, like, what do I do? What's going on?
And she's never used a transporter before.
She's never used a transporter before because she's a stupid doctor who doesn't know what baking is in chemistry and has never used a transporter, which everybody and their fucking dog knows how to use or would use at this time because you just slide your fingers up and down. But come on. It's like riding in a car and never knowing how that car even works in the first place.
Not even the vaguest idea.
It's just like, here, take the wheel, and you're going, what is a wheel? How does this work? I'm a passenger. You could give a wheel to a 6-year-old and they'd know how to just at least keep it stable. They're making her like this stupid idiot. It's stupid, right? So the ENH or the emergency EMH pops on.
He has several different ones, and they're all done by him.
They're all done by him, which is weird, but because she notes it, it's one of you, not you, but one of you. So there's something going on there, but the EMH pops up and says, your blood pressure is elevated, your heartbeat is rapid. Do you need something for this to calm you down? A natural response for an EMH to pop up at a time of increased stress. She's the only one on the ship at the time, so even more sense. She says, I'm fine. She kind of calms herself and, deactivate the EMH. And she goes back to her thing. Fubar breaks out on the planet. She beams everyone aboard, including 7, who doesn't kill Bajazil because Picard makes another stupid little speech about we're not like them, or you're not, this is what it is to be human, blah, blah, blah.
You found her once, you'll find her again.
You'll find her again. This is not our way. They beam up. They all have a little get together. Bruce Maddox is beamed up too, sent to sick bay. We get a little conversation. 7 says, I need, can I take these weapons? I'm out of here. She gives Picard a little bus pass, subway token, whatever the thing may be, and says, you know where to find me. I don't know what it is. Apparently, it's a site-to-site transporter that can call for help anytime, anywhere. It's a get-out-of-jail-free card that allows 7 of 9 to come back. Yeah, that allows 7 of 9 to come back into the show at a certain point. So they go to sickbay. They leave. 7 goes to her quarters, whatever. And then as they're all tending to Bruce Maddox, who's given some information, and we're told about that they're perfect, these kids, and, you know, did you meet Daj? And there's another, and we find out that he knows she's on the artifact because he sent her there, which is, again, the stupidest thing in the world. And Maddox sent Daj and built a mother program to seek out Picard, while the other one,
he's trying to figure out what they're doing, or
because
something.
he's trying to figure out what they're doing, and he's doing it in the most asinine way possible. He's like a fucking Clue villain or something. None of this makes any sense. And then we cut back to Jerry, or 7 of 9, who beams back down to the planet Free Cloud. And this is where 7 of 9 dies.
Yeah.
And I don't mean 7 of 9, the character, literally, or that the character dies. She beams down to Bjayzl, who there's hinted that there was a relationship of some kind there.
Yeah.
Of intimate sorts of some kind, whether that be just mental or emotional or physical. We don't know, but there are some things hinted that. And Bjayzl is the one that authorized or allowed Icheb to be captured and stripped of his Borg parts, because she is selling Borg parts. That's the reason why the 7 of 9 swap was going to work. Not only because she was a Ranger, but because they wanted to strip her of her Borg parts, because she's pure. She's from the Delta Quadrant. She's special. I don't know what that fucking means. I thought all assimilations across the board are the same. That's the whole purpose of the Borg.
It's whatever you were designated for.
That's the whole point of the Borg. They assimilate you. It's not, they don't come to like Earth and be like, well, we're going to assimilate you guys specially. They don't go to Romulus and be like, well, we're going to try something new here, guys.
Well, I mean, they'll flat out just kill you if you're being a pain in their ass.
They'll kill you, or they'll stick you in the neck and you become Borg. That's it. And there's an artifact that everyone apparently knows about now, because Picard knows where it is. And there's Borg everywhere, because the Borg have attacked and destroyed everything. They have blown up and assimilated Romulan ships, tons of Federation ships. We see it all the time. So people have come back as being Borg. But apparently, the Delta Quadrant Borg are special. Their parts are unique. They're just fucking... The Borg aren't this technology superior race of people. It's what they can do. The Borg themselves are just cybernetic beings. They're just like controlled robot people.
They're called drones.
They're drones led by a queen. They're worthless, which is why the Borg just leave them on their own when they're worthless to them. The parts they have into them can't be that needed. Like, what the fuck are they selling Borg parts for, and to who?
I mean, there was that one episode of Voyager where like the entire plot was some Ferengi wanted to get 7 of 9 back so that they could sell all the fucking nanites in her. But
yeah, I guess you have nanites, but why is there a black market organ trade on Borg parts?
Yeah.
My question is, what is the need for that?
And why would you go about it in the most dangerous way possible when they just leave cubes full of the fucking things dead?
You found an artifact. You know they came back from the Delta Quadrant. Go find a species. The Borg were already on the outskirts of Federation territory, which means on the outskirts of everyone's territory. Go send some ships and find some Borg.
Yeah, like they went for the one who's in Starfleet. Wait,
but then you also have Hugh, and the Romulans are there friends with them. And so what you do is you trap the USS Coleman, because Icheb's on the ship, an ensign, just so you can capture him. And there's a couple bodies in there. So maybe the ship had some other, God forbid, the other characters of Voyager kids who used to be drones. And you led him to Icheb. And the insinuation is that Bjayzl got real close to 7 of 9 in some sort of intimate or some sort of emotional relationship where 7 said she was supposed to help us. helped the Rangers when Starfleet left. And I gave her the information on Icheb that he was like my son. And she used that to capture him, to send him to the 7 domes thing, just so you can rip out his parts without anesthesia for no reason. Like, why be evil doctors like that? Wouldn't it be simpler if you're trying to get the cortical nodes in these internal parts to sedate the patient and cut them out? So
Or
you
just
don't
find a deactivated cube.
None of this makes no sense.
It's dumb.
It's absolutely goddamn stupid. And then 7 of 9 comes back down and she kills her people around her, and then Bjayzl is trying to stall. And 7 of 9 does the only time she acts like 7 of 9 by doing some like really cool math stuff. She's like, blah blah blah, your guards are 5 seconds away, and she like, I knew this because I'm smart. And then Bjayzl goes, oh no, we can work a deal. And 7 of 9 blasts her in the fucking chest, and she disintegrates just like a firework on the 4th of July. Straight up murder. Straight up murder, going against every tenet that the Federation and its people were, going against everything that Starfleet is, going against everything that 7 of 9 was, losing her humanity in that instant, and negating everything that happened in Star Trek Voyager for her. Yes, she lost someone who she considered her son. He wasn't, but considered it. That doesn't make it any better. But everyone has lost someone. Picard watched his own son die. And he had every reason to hate the Klingons, and he did, and they used it as a plot point. And Kirk. Kirk gets, his son is stabbed in the fucking chest.
And it's the entire plot of like Star Trek 6 that they catch him. He's like, I fucking hate Klingons. They killed my son.
And it's a whole arc where he kind of he learns to forgive, and he moves on. He literally lost a son. We have stuff, tragic shit happen that should change people, but doesn't. Picard does lose his like nephew, the only one that was a Picard, right? Because he's the only one out in a terrible, Renee in a fire. There's that episode where he's, there's no one left to continue the Picard line because he's in space and he's not going to get married or settle down. There's all sorts of tragic events that happen. Sisko lost his wife to the Borg. And never learned to forgive Picard because he was the one that did it. I mean, and now 7 of 9 loses Icheb and becomes a fucking irredeemable bastard. And I hate every goddamn minute of it. And during that conversation, we're led to believe that the Romulans and Starfleet are working together. We're led to believe that Starfleet and the Romulans are working together in an attempt to stop whatever Maddox was working on. And I don't understand any of that. Do you?
I'm guessing like all the deep cover Romulan.
That's what I mean.
When
they're doing that prisoner swap and they're talking about the artifact and other stuff and what's going on, we're led to believe that the line or something was like Starfleet, knew just as much, or like they're involved too. Like what sort of terrible supermarket novel bullshit is happening here?
Well, I mean, the Admiral seemed to not think it was credible, so.
And then we get to the final scene of this whole thing, which kills everything. Bruce Maddox has said his piece, and he is recovering, and then Aggie is there. And we're led to believe from the scene earlier that they love each other because they were dating. And Bruce Maddox talks about them being perfect in reference to Daj and her sister. And then spills the beans that it was him. He mentions himself, Soong, in the present tense somehow, but I'm assuming he's referencing his work. He's like, me, Soong, and you, we did it. Talking to Aggie as part of this creation, which calls into question a few things. Aggie says she doesn't know about anything, even right from the beginning before everything gets spilled. And then she kills him. And this was a joke I made, I think, in episode 2 or 3 of this podcast, where I say, remember the Commodore, evil Commodore with shades, talks to Aggie about Picard and what he's doing. And then she goes on the ship and says, hey, the Commodore is asked all about you. But I said, fuck you. And I came here. She doesn't know I'm here. Remember?
Yeah.
And I guess this can be a smart callback to the episode where she walks in and shoots the Romulan in the back. Remember, I asked the question, where the fuck did she get that gun? Why was she there? There was no gun or Romulan there. I still say it's bad writing. It just luckily ties back into it. She kills Bruce Maddox saying, they've told me things. I've seen things you couldn't imagine or some bullshit like that.
Yeah.
Assuming that the Commodore did in fact get to her, do some crazy stuff, and only sent her on this mission to kill Bruce Maddox, which she does. And I hate it. And I hate it because I can go back to the beginning of this review where I say that you even hired the same actor to play Bruce Maddox for a combined total of 5 minutes of voiceovers, screen time. You brought him back just to be killed. You brought Icheb back just to be killed. And it's stupid.
7 of 9 just to be functionally killed.
And turned into Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And now the entire arc of the original chunk of Bruce Maddox means nothing. And all the talk we've did about digging up this cool character from TNG who could have been great is now dead. And I summed it up at the end again in my madness scribblings, just pointing, it stinks. This was the worst episode of any Star Trek episode I've ever seen. And that includes when they got turned into goddamn fishes.
Oh, I put it out. I watched Code of Honor today, which is a terrible episode.
Yeah, the one where they turn in Voyager and they revert into fish because they go past warp 10
threshold,
and then Paris steals Janeway.
You were right. That episode was one of the ones I think somebody sent in, or it was one of the other writers who worked on it. It was finished, and then they. Yeah.
It was that writing thing I talked about in the first episode of scripts get sent in and you just buy them. They got turned into fish people, then they have sex and mate, and they've left a planet of Janeway and Paris fish babies because they just left them there.
Yeah.
This was worse than that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that didn't fuck with Star Trek and their people. It just fucked with the stupid idea of turning into fish people because you went too fast. That's dumb in and of itself, but it doesn't change Star Trek and that series. It didn't have any impact on Voyager.
I like season 1 TNG better than this. And season 1 TNG is rough.
Yes, it's pretty rough. And it's pretty rough. This was the worst episode of Star Trek Picard, and what is this, episode 5 or 4?
This is episode 5. I think
this is episode 5, halfway pay point. And that's when I say, I talked about early on, saying you got to give a show 5 episodes before you're hooked. It's the home movies idea. It's the Brendan Small technique. And if this is the 5th episode, and I wasn't watching this to cover for a review and to do this podcast, I'd be out.
Yep, me too.
I'd cancel my subscription and I'd be out. I'd walk away and be done, because this is absolutely everything I didn't want to see in a revised post TNG series, because Discovery is its own beast, and being in its own universe now means I don't have a problem it being its own beast, right?
From what I've seen of it, it looks like it's trying to be Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda, only shittier.
Yeah, now because they're in the future, I'm like, do whatever, bring in new fans. Okay. It's the same reason I really enjoy the J.J. Abrams series of films, because they don't impact the TOS era of films.
I mean, other than the stupid Hubis Supernova.
I mean, understand which was never meant to be a plot point for a future show. It was literally just a movie thing that was, hey, this is a cool way to get us out of there.
You know who wrote on that one, right?
Yes, I do.
Alex Kurtzman.
I hate everything
this man
about
has been massacring shit from my childhood for about a decade and a half.
This single episode managed to kill off stuff that I loved about Voyager. And I've, like I said, I've met the actor who plays Icheb. Super nice guy, does a lot of science fiction stuff. Follow him on Twitter if you have to. He's great, Manny on Terebu. It kills off Yicha for no reason. It turns 7 of 9 into a cheap bounty hunter, losing her humanity that she has spent years and post Voyager trying to capture.
They had a scene of that with her and Picard. How do you get your humanity back? Did you get your humanity back? And he's like, yes. All of it?
No. And that's something Picard has always been touching with, but only in the films.
Yeah.
When he came back from being a Borg on TNG, it was a little bit of issue, but then it was essentially waved aside because the series moved forward.
Status quo, yeah.
You went back to normal. It wasn't till First Contact where they really played with that opening scene of him seeing, the probes coming out of his face. Remember when he's looking in the mirror and he's freaking out for a second? That they're calling to him.
Coincidentally, that one is also Moby Dick.
Yes, and that's when they keep him away. They keep the Enterprise E away. Again, this is stupid, but they keep the Enterprise E away from the battle of Sector 001 because of Picard, right? Because apparently Starfleet doesn't trust him in case the Borg attacks again, which is the stupidest goddamn thing, because if the Borg win the battle of Sector 001, Earth is assimilated and we're all fucked. And what good is the Enterprise going to do anyways at that point?
And it's a flagship.
And it's your flagship. And I know in TNG era, flagships didn't mean as much as opposed to just being there because they were family and kind of diplomacy vessels, right? They're what you see. But the Enterprise E is designed as a combat vessel. They got rid of the families for that reason, and they built it with the help of people to fight the Borg.
Scotty.
Yes, Scotty was part of the team, and Harriman was part of the team that designed and the Bozeman captain. Grammer. Two really old dudes were helped
from the 23rd century.
Design the Sovereign because their technology or their understanding of their duotronics and stuff, the Borg didn't understand. Yeah. Right? So at least in that sense, you could see them consulting because the Borg wouldn't be able to adapt if you kind of went backwards. They would be like, what the fuck is this? And you would then have an advantage if you mixed it with new stuff. Whatever, it's cool. But the Enterprise E was built to fight the Borg. It was the exact opposite of the Defiant. Defiant was small, quick, a mothballed ship that was modified to fight the Borg because it could get in and out quick.
Really powerful engines, weapons, and
it's like it's anything today.
Armor.
A smaller ship. It's like it's easier to catch a bird than probably a fly if it was in the same room just because of size. So the Defiant being small is that way. The Enterprise E was big because you still needed some sort of capital ship to fight, and to keep it out in the outskirts is stupid. And other Star Trek series, mainly Discovery, touches on this because the Enterprise in that episode and that series is the same thing. Well, we missed the battle of Earth because we were out in the sectors exploring. It's stupid. You don't do that. I hate everything. I hate the series. I hate what it's done to Star Trek. And this, I knew it was going to be different than TNG, but this just spits in the face of everything we've come to love, and I hate it.
They've been actively doing that for the past 3 years.
Yeah, and I'm done. I am done. I am done with this series. I'm going to continue to watch it to bring you more reviews on it. But as of right now, I've written this off as just a colossal and epic failure. Everything you've known and come to know and love about Starfleet and Star Trek has just been ripped away at this point. They're just a organization just of idiots gone awry, making stupid decisions, betraying themselves and people and being racist. It's not what Star Trek is. And I know there's allusions to the modern day and this, that, or the other, whatever you want to think of it. I still think it's stupid because in Star Trek, you need a force of good, right? Where other things happen and we show it's a explanation and expression of humanity's kind of growth. Like, hey, we were barbarians and we used to go to war and blow the fuck out of each other.
That's the entire point of the Encounter at Farpoint.
Yes, and now we are beyond that,
We are no longer a savage race.
We're better. We're going to show others like that there is a better way, that, hey, we were just like you at one point. Now that you have warp, we're going to help you grow because we didn't have that help, and make you better. And when threats happened, it was always to other races or cultures or people. And the humanity of Starfleet is what kind of centered a lot of those shows. And DS9 was an outlier because it wasn't Federation territory. It was the Bajorans. And
It was the
kind
extreme edge.
It was the edge, and it was essentially the Wild West. And it was what happens when you put these perfect Starfleet people into the situation where things aren't perfect. And you see that when Starfleet is way far away and, not looking over your shoulder, you start playing it a little fast and loose. I get that. I liked it, but I was such afraid, and I've heard other people write and talk about this too, that I hope that wouldn't have been the standard quo for Trek moving forward, that now humans are just as stupid and barbaric as anyone else. And I'm done.
Yep.
And so that's Star Trek. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. I know a lot of you have been leaving comments on YouTube. I do read them, even though I can't get back to everyone. We've had some pretty interesting and lengthy conversations, siding with us and against us on certain things. So we love to see that. So leave that in the comment below.
I mean, I just watched Encounter of Farpoint again, and like Q shows up in like the World War III,
Yep. That's the whole point. The whole point.
Control your soldiers with drugs and shit.
And now it's all backwards. And now Q was correct, and we should have been culled. But apparently now Picard is attaché to the Q continuum for some goddamn reason that still pisses me the fuck off. So that's it for Star Trek Picard. We're going to move on from there.